Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers on Fox 54, sponsored by Realtree. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Let there be football. Welcome into Move the Chains. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Listen, the College Football Playoff Committee finally unveiled their first set of rankings, which means that you don't have to spend any time paying attention to the AP. I never did anyway. No disrespect to the AP, but maybe I guess a little disrespect. But the college football playoff rankings and all that matter. And I've got some points that I want to kind of take away and extrapolate from what I saw in the first release this past Tuesday. And the second down, man, the NFL trade deadline has come and gone. And I don't know about you, but I love it because teams really try to show me who exactly they are, who they plan to be, and whether or not they're legitimate contenders to try to win a championship. So I'll definitely give you what I think are my three biggest takeaways from the NFL trade deadline this year. And also in my nonsense narrative, man, listen, there's a team that people keep telling me are the biggest threats to the Chiefs, and I just don't understand why. Like, I get why they say it, but I don't get why they continue to say it when it's not true. And lastly, there's a natural-born leader in college football, and his last name is Sanders. All that and more right here on Move the Chains. Hey, but you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with first down. College Football Playoff Committee has given us their first set of rankings. Now, remember, this is the first year they've got a 12-team playoff, so you're going to see things done a little differently. So I want to start by giving my graphic right here when it comes to the college football playoff. So if we're looking, what you see at the left are the current rankings. You see the top 12 teams and the first teams out, sort of kind of remind you of March Madness, right? SMU at 13 and A&M at 14. But look at Ohio State. Ohio State is the number 2 team in the nation, whom I'll talk about shortly, but they're the 5th seed. And if a lot of you, if you don't know exactly why this is happening, it's because the top 4 seeds are going to be based on conference champions. So Ohio State is number 5 because the team that's ranked number 1 in the nation is the best team also in the Big Ten and projected currently as the Big Ten champ, which is why Oregon is the number 1 team in the nation and they're the number 1 seed. And while Ohio State is number 2 ranked, they're the number 5 seed. But as I look up and down this list and I look at these teams, a couple of points I want to make. First, I'm going to start with the number 1 team in the nation in the Oregon Ducks, and that's the acquisition of Dylan Gabriel. And yeah, I said acquisition because I told you I think that college football now, when it comes to the transfer portal, is just like NFL free agency. You're going out and you're acquiring talent, and I think that's what you should do. So when it comes to Dylan Gabriel, and I've got some stats for you right here, 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. So I think Cam Ward has taken a lot of the shine away from Dylan Gabriel, and I think deservedly so because Cam Ward has been phenomenal. Like, he's leading the league in passing, completion percentage, total offense, the country. So Cam Ward is that guy. But Dylan Gabriel is taking care of the football, and he is also showing what a field general is. I said it before the season started that Dylan Gabriel was the perfect transition from Bo Nix for Oregon, and you can see why. All right, secondly, I want to talk about 2 teams simultaneously, the number 2 and 3 teams in the nation respectively. You see Will Howard plays quarterback for Ohio State, right? We remember last year with Kyle McCord, who's now the quarterback at Syracuse. A lot of people thought he was the reason that Ohio State wasn't an elite program at that position, and they thought he held them back. And I think a lot of people had the same issues and same concerns about Will Howard. And while Will Howard did have a mental gaffe against Oregon on the road when it came to clock management, I won't disagree with you there. I think he's been pretty good this year. He's been able to run the football effectively. He's not turning the ball over. And Ohio State has shown you that even in close games, that they can come out on top outside of losing to the number 1 team in the nation on the road. But then if you look at Georgia at number 3, and this is why I think the committee has Georgia at number 3, and a lot of it rests on the shoulders of Carson Beck. Because Georgia lost to Alabama on the road, Ohio State lost to Oregon on the road. Neither team has really an issue with me, in my opinion, or I don't have an issue with them based on that fact. But I have an issue with the double-digit interceptions for Carson Beck, and the season hasn't even ended yet. I think the committee really thinks Georgia has a high ceiling, one of the highest in the country. But just because you have a high ceiling doesn't mean you can afford the opportunity not to play to that high ceiling. And I think that's what you've seen here. And listen, I've talked about this ad nauseum over the past month, I feel like. I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know what the decision-making is. I don't know if Carson Beck's just pressing. Whatever it is, they need to figure it out. If Georgia keeps on winning, it won't be a problem in terms of getting to the college football playoff. But their ultimate goal is to win a national championship, which I know it is under Kirby Smart and that staff. Then that guy right there, a presumptive first-round pick and a presumptive Heisman Trophy candidate coming into the season, he's got to play better. All right, so there's a team that had probably the worst loss of the year in college football, and that was to Northern Illinois. And what I didn't do is I didn't panic because I said Notre Dame wouldn't lose a game after losing to Northern Illinois. Because what do I always say? When's the best time to beat a good team and upset a good team? Early on in the season. Because you don't know what a team is. A team has not gelled the way they want to, and they have not become what they want to. Marcus Freeman, former defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. So when you look at these stats of being the 8th-ranked defense, it doesn't surprise you, right? Now, them averaging 37 points is something that may surprise a lot of people, and some people may say, well, what about their schedule? They're an independent school. I'm going to tell you, Notre Dame has beaten the likes of Louisville, Navy, and Texas A&M. All were ranked in the top 25 when they beat them, but for those people like me who really don't buy into the AP that much, they're also ranked in the top 25, Louisville and A&M, in the initial college football playoff rankings as well. I do care what a team does against a team when they beat them. If you're ranked when I beat you, then I think that matters. A lot of people will say, well, they're not ranked now, so it doesn't look as good that you beat them 6 weeks ago. You beat them 6 weeks ago when they were ranked. It matters in my estimation. All right, so now, before we go to break, I've got a couple quick picks I want to make. Georgia's going on the road against Ole Miss, and Alabama's going on the road against LSU. This Georgia-Ole Miss game concerns me just a little bit because it kind of reminds me or gives me feelings of Georgia-Alabama. Georgia going up against a high-octane offense, and will they try to be that offense or will they try to run the football? I'm hoping that Georgia has learned their lesson because I like for teams to be who they are. I think Georgia goes on the road and beats Ole Miss because they are able to run the football, and I can't see Carson Beck continuing to have multiple interception games. If I'm wrong and he does, then oh well, my pick will just be wrong. And Alabama, I think they go on the road and beat LSU. I'm just less confident in LSU than I am about Alabama. I think LSU can take advantage of Alabama's young secondary, but I think Alabama's ability to get after Nussmeier hasn't been great the past couple of games. He's thrown a lot of interceptions, like a Carson Beck. And Marcel Reed for A&M really gave LSU problems with the read option. So it was either a schematic problem for LSU that they couldn't stop Marcel Reed, or it was a player issue, meaning you don't have the horses to do it. The horses aren't changing. The players are still going to be there. And if it's a schematic problem, I think Alabama can use that to their advantage. So I've got Georgia beating Ole Miss on the road, and I've got Alabama going into Death Valley and beating LSU. All right, when we come back from the break, my biggest reaction to the NFL trade deadline. We'll be back and we'll move the chains right after this. Welcome back to Move the Chains. And before we get to second down and my reaction to the NFL trades that happened before the deadline, I want to, as always, take this opportunity to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me this opportunity to host Move the Chains. Secondly, to everybody that watches and supports this show, I really appreciate it. Like, it's much love, and it really kind of continues to encourage me in this journey. And last but always, certainly not least, man, the production crew. Guys, what they do is not easy. I'm telling you, I watch them as we're doing pre-show production, as we're getting ready for the show throughout the week. What they do is hard. I can't do it. That's why I'm in front of the television. So shout out to the best production crew in the business. All right? But you know what time it is. It's time for second down. So there are points throughout the season that really excite me. The start of the season, of course, playoff time, and of course the Super Bowl. But the NFL trade deadline is exciting as well. And the NFL trade deadline is exciting to me simply because it allows me to see what teams truly feel like they're ready to move into contending for a Super Bowl and what teams have punted on the season. Because if you're a seller at the deadline, that means that you don't think you're going to win. The season hasn't turned out the way you thought it would. And now you're trying to take away and give to somebody else. You're trying to take away from yourself and give to somebody else, but you're also trying to get back draft capital because you understand that that's going to be important for you. So here are a couple of points that I take away from the trade deadline. First of all, DeAndre Hopkins going to the Chiefs, to me, has solidified the Chiefs being the best team in the NFL. And I know that everybody that I'm hearing now, and I don't want to say everybody, but 80% of the people, I even saw the power rankings, have the Lions as the best team. Not that the Chiefs haven't lost, but it's that they haven't lost even with all that they have lost. No Hollywood Brown, no Rashee Rice. And then you bring in DeAndre Hopkins, and he has his best game as a Chief. A red zone threat is what he is. A football savant is what he is. Now, if you think about it, on that offense, in skill positions alone, they got three savants in Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and DeAndre Hopkins. Not to mention what they have up front on the line, because we know their offensive line are very smart and very capable of being one of the best in the league. But to have a guy who barely played, and you saw it on that throw right there, I think they said he ran the wrong route and just continued down the field. And Mahomes put a ball perfectly over his right shoulder, and D-Hop went up over 3 defenders and made that play. This acquisition will allow Kansas City to, I don't even care if they're a big play offense, because they don't necessarily want to be a big play offense, but it allows them to be better on third down, which is hard to be because they're the second best team in third down conversion right now. And it's going to allow them to be that much better in the red zone. If you're the NFL with a top 2 defense and one of the best red zone threats in Kelsey and Hopkins in the league, you don't want those problems. All right, what's my next trade deadline opportunity here? Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders. Marshawn Lattimore, although has been injured, if you've never seen him play, you don't understand how great he is in man coverage, whether it's press man or whether he's off. He's also a phenomenal tackler. And why did the Commanders do this? Because they believe that they're a legitimate contender not to get to an NFC Championship game, but also get to a Super Bowl. They're going to probably have to play a team like the Falcons, Drake London, right? Kyle Pitts and those guys. You're going to have to possibly play a team like the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. These teams have viable receiving options and viable plays in the passing game are made. And if you're the Commanders, the defense is what you have that's continuing to get better, but it's not your strong suit. To solidify your secondary was very important, and they did it with one of the best cover corners in football. And lastly, I want to talk about Mike Williams going to the Steelers. The only thing that people know Mike Williams for right now, who was with the Jets, was the guy who slipped on that pass from Aaron Rodgers, I think, when they were playing in London. And what I want you to realize is that every time Aaron Rodgers has a problem, it's somebody else's fault. It was either Mike McCarthy, or it was the Jets' offensive line, or it was Robert Saleh, or it was Mike Williams. But Mike Williams is going to be a big play threat in Pittsburgh. And what I mean by big play threat is that he's going to be a big play threat because he makes George Pickens even bigger than what George Pickens is right now. And that's hard to do because George Pickens is that guy. But Mike Williams is a big body possession receiver who can get down the field as well with good speed, but will also give you a bigger presence in the red zone. What does Pittsburgh want to do? They want to run the football and they want to go on play action. He helps you in that regard. So Mike Williams will be a very, very pivotal part, an integral part to the Steeler offense because of what he can do in the red zone and also because he's going to allow George Pickens to take the next step to another stratosphere. All right, when we come back from the break, my nonsense narrative, there's a team that people continue to try to tell me is the number 1 contender to the Chiefs in the AFC, and I just don't know why, man. More with that back on Move the Chains right after this. Welcome back into the show, and we don't need to delay this. Don't delay the inevitable. My favorite segment of the show. It's time for the nonsense narrative. All right, listen, man. I really think Joe Burrow is phenomenal. So I don't take this segment as me saying Joe Burrow's not good. He's phenomenal, man. Like I've talked about Joe Burrow before. Like I like Joe Burrow. He'd be one of my top 4 or 5 quarterbacks that I draft to start a football team. He's a franchise quarterback, okay? But people keep saying that the Bengals are the biggest threat to the Chiefs, and the reason that it makes me mad is because they're living off of what was done 3 years ago. Yes, the Bengals went in the Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs in the AFC title game to get to the Super Bowl that they didn't end up winning against the Rams. But then the very next season, the Chiefs beat the Bengals to get to the Super Bowl and won it, and then the Chiefs won it again last year. So this is the Bengals team that with a healthy Joe Burrow can put up points. You see right there. Now why Cincinnati doesn't want to pay that man, I have no idea. I have no idea. Like, it's ridiculous. Pay that man his money. But that's the problem as well because, as I say, pay him his money because I think it's warranted and he's that good. When you pay him his money, I think you're going to get more of what you're getting from the Cincinnati Bengals now, which is a dynamic offense who does struggle at times when they need to put the ball in the end zone, like on the 2-point conversion. Great catch by Chase. Number 1, he that deal. But my point is, they are trooper, intrepid, terrible on the defensive side of the football. I think the first adjective I gave wasn't even a word. That's how bad they are. So why do you keep telling me that they're the biggest threat to the Chiefs? Because you believe in Joe Burrow? Man, I get that the quarterback position is the most important position on the field, but you got to have other players that can make plays. You got to be better. This is a team that doesn't like to run the football. Man, do you know Joe Burrow had 56 passing attempts last night? And 60% completion percentage. That's pretty low. He threw for over 404 touchdowns, which is phenomenal. But, man, he had 22 incompletions. had an interception in the end zone that was called back. It was the right call. But the Bengals aren't a good team. You know how I know they aren't a good team? Because they don't beat good teams. Give me the graphic. And you know why? This is also getting me angered because last year, this was the number one knock on the Miami Dolphins, that they don't beat good teams. They had a terrible record against teams with winning records. Look at the Bengals. They've lost to the Chiefs. First of all, losing to the Patriots was unacceptable in week 1. And I told you, it's easier to beat a team early on in the season at any point in time. But the Bengals know that that's a game they should have won. They had everybody healthy. There's no reason for them scoring 10 points in that manner because they've hit their stride offensively. That was bad. So they've lost to the Chiefs. They've lost to the Ravens, they've lost to the Eagles, and they've lost to the Ravens again. And they've lost to the Commanders. Those are all teams that are either top of their division and serious playoff or Super Bowl contenders. Do you know that the wins that they have are against teams that only have 2 wins each? The teams that they've beaten don't have a combined 10 wins this year. In the Panthers, in the Giants, in the Browns, and in the Raiders. So how are you going to sit here and tell me that a 4-6 team is the biggest threat to a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a 2-time defending Super Bowl champion, and a guy like Patrick Mahomes and a coach like Andy Reid? Stop living in the past. Take off the Polaroid that you took of the Cincinnati Bengals, throw it away, take another picture, get it developed, and see exactly who they are. I know it's hard sometimes to not give a team the benefit of the doubt based on what they've done in the past, but there's a fine line between what a team's done in the past and who they are now. And the Bengals are who they are now, a mediocre football team with a good quarterback. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final drive. We'll be back and we'll move the chains right after this. And welcome back. Now we're getting to the end of the show, so you know what that means. It's time for the final drive. Shedeur Sanders is a natural-born leader, man. Like, I think he has a high-level accuracy. I think his acumen is second to none in college football because he was raised by a football dad who was also one of the smartest players ever in Deion. I think that his toughness is second to none. His ability to put the ball where he wants to. His agility is underrated in my estimation. But the biggest attribute in my estimation about Shedeur Sanders is his leadership. I've never seen him say anything that has done anything but uplift his team or his teammates. That's why I can't wait to see where he lands when it comes to the NFL draft. All right, don't forget, you cannot just watch Move the Chains right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54. You can catch your boy on YouTube as well. Subscribe to the channel. It's @move_the_chains. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, post whatever you need there because it is welcome. As always, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers, and until next time right here on Move the Chains, God bless.